Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Today we will be focusing on a critical issue for Pakistan's economic recovery under the $7 billion Extended Fund Facility. The IMF mission led by Chief, of course, Nathan Potter, praised Pakistan's strong implementation but has yet to finalize the staff level agreement that is needed to unlock the $1 billion tranche. While our government is of course optimistic when we talk about these talks that are going to be continuing with the online or virtual discussions, the delays in implementing the crucial benchmarks like agriculture tax and gas sector adjustments mean that next year growth is going to be at modest 2.8%. This IMF program is seen as a lifeline for Pakistan. In today's program, we'll be talking about Pakistan's economic recovery, what is needed to be done by the government, and also how internal and external factors are impacting our economy. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Ms. Eshal, Arooj, who is an economic analyst. Welcome to the program. We are also joined by Dr. Jasim Anwar, who is a development expert. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Dr. Vaqar Ahmed, who is senior economist. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Faad, Waheed, who is former Vice President, Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome to the program. Dr. Jasim, let me start with you. When we talk about these IMF talks, of course, we know that IMF has acknowledged strong implementation of EFF program, but it has yet to finalize this staff level agreement. What are the key sticking points in your opinion that has delayed it, and how critical this release of 1 billion tranche is for Pakistan?
Well, thank you so much, Maryam, for having me. Let us quickly recap for our audience to understand how these tranches are released and how they affect the economic growth in broader perspectives. So this 1 billion tranche, the staff level agreement, certain prerequisites that were expected during the last board meeting, and you are aware of it, it was about 3-4 months ago. So in that meeting, very crucial was energy sector reforms, state-owned enterprises, the big bleeders that needs to be efficiency models, and then obviously looking into the increasing the tax net and how to reduce the circular debt that Pakistan is facing in energy sector as well as agriculture. Some other sectors. Agriculture reforms are also part of that, including governance reforms like fiscal policies, who will be making them, all those things. So the good thing that number of those initiatives that were expected by the government of Pakistan were taken, and they're already on way to implementation. For example, one fiscal policy you must be aware of, the policies of the taxes and the tariffs and all those things is now with the finance division. Earlier it was with the FPR. Similarly, the government attempted to privatize big bleeders like PIA privatization process, as well as the steel mills and some other entities, including discos. Yet, it is the process that was already taken place, although we were not very lucky to get the right bids in a right volume, so that actually covers up. But in the meanwhile, PIA also showed a massive improvement in terms of starting the new air routes and also some other structural changes they were doing. Now, there's no deadlock, by the way. It's a very good development that is being taken on, and the meeting has reached to the positive conclusion of releasing in fact 2 billion. One is for climatic financing, and one is for this tranche of the 7 billion amount, so $1 billion. So it is very crucial. Why it is crucial? Number one, agriculture reforms, the sectoral changes, the technology shift that Pakistan economy, GDP breakup, you have service industry about 50-60%, and then the rest is your agriculture side, and then very little is industrial side. Now we need to improve these ratios of agriculture side and the industrial side and the human capital side in terms of the GDP ratios. So the certain injection is required for PHDP. There's a crucial period of PHDP formulation these days. So we need to finalize the budget, which is upcoming, and these 2 months are very important. You know how much kitty we have in terms of the finances that we can leverage for the development projects, as well as spending on health and education, as well as building the infrastructures which is needed for the growing population, and as well as energy sector reforms. So it is crucial that we get that, and we are very hopeful that it will be done, including this 1 billion climatic fund that Pakistan is requested, because we are the main effectees of these overall global warming. So yes,
of course,
good things coming.
We're going to be talking about resilience and sustainability facility as well. But Dr. Vaqar, when we talk about this IMF program, in your opinion, what were the main sticking points when we talk about a staff level agreement, and how crucial is it for Pakistan's immediate economic recovery, this tranche of $1 billion?
Thank you very much for having me. I think the tranche is very crucial, not just in money terms, but also as an indicator for other development partners who have to pour in the money to support our foreign exchange reserves, as well as, of course, potential foreign investments that have to materialize. That being said, of course, this was a difficult review. So hats off to the economic managers, to the Treasury, to the central bank for, of course, satisfying the reviewers on most of the fronts. Of course, there are caveats that the fund has pointed out. I can see that you were talking with our esteemed panelists regarding the climate fund. Of course, while that is an opportunity for Pakistan, IMF, however, of course, wants to have more concrete mechanisms in place how Pakistan will utilize that fund, given that even under our existing budgetary arrangements, there are leakages which IMF wants us to plug them when it comes to our own local public investment as well. Second, I think they would like to see continued efforts, sustainability of efforts on the taxation front. Particularly provincial governments will have to tighten their belt. They want to see heightened resource mobilization by all provinces. They think that there is a lot of tax gap over there, and provinces can do a better job, given that more than 50% of our tax base, which is the service sector economy, comes under the domain of provincial governments. And then, of course, the energy sector reform, while the fund has expressed their satisfaction on the energy sector measures which have been taken by Pakistan. However, with regards to renegotiation of contracts which is going on in the power sector, they would like to have much more transparent arrangements in place so that the rules of the game are credible and does not dent future potential investors who would like to come in. They should not be coming into Pakistan with the fear that Pakistan could renegotiate or terminate contracts in the middle.
Right. Let me bring in Eshal into the discussion. Eshal, when we talk about fiscal consolidation, of course, despite progress on fiscal consolidation, FBR continues to miss some targets. What specific reforms, in your opinion, are needed to broaden the tax base?
So, in my opinion, Pakistan holds a very significant informal economy, which is even greater than the formal economy that runs. It is rounded off to almost $400 billion. So, that is not in the FBR tax base right now. So, in order for them to increase their tax base, expanding their tax revenues, they'll have to bring that in. And that could be done through payment digitalization, which is happening at the moment as well using Iran platform. There are many different organizations such as Karandaz who are working for Rast, and that is helping bringing merchants on board on Rast network, which is allowing FBR to know the informal activity that is existing in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dr. Vaqar, when we talk about Pakistan's public debt that stands at around 65.7% of GDP, and fiscal consolidation is prioritized by IMF, How feasible are these proposed fiscal targets given the delayed structural reforms like agricultural taxation and others?
Yes. So I think on the debt management front, we will really need to do a better job. Most of the debt indicators, while of course not pointing towards any alarming situation at the moment, they are vulnerable to any commodity price shocks if they happen. They're also vulnerable to any domestic uptick of demand, particularly import demand. And easily you could see the pressure build up on your foreign exchange reserves. And that will hit your debt structure further. So we really need to comply with the debt management strategy that we have submitted to the review mission. They continue to keep a very close eye on it. And the bottom line in our debt management strategy is that we want to keep the short-term debt, further obligations of short-term debt to a minimum. If there are short-term debt obligations, we want to convert them into longer-term debt obligation, that also on concessional terms. This only happens if you are doing what the fund says so that other lenders can reprofile your debt. That should be the debt management strategy. Otherwise, of course, you remain on the edge and there's a fear that you could easily hit the BOP crisis in future if there's any external shocks like oil price shock or food price shocks.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Vaqar Ahmed, for joining us in today's discussion. Dr. Jasim, when we talk about circular debt, it remains unresolved despite IMF's pressure. What immediate steps, in your opinion, are needed at this point in time?
Fine. So let us first examine the contributors to the circular debt, and then we can come up with the solutions according to that. Number one is your energy sector. There are some limitations in the energy sector. For example, we have IPP agreements, which 5 were cancelled or renegotiated, and the other ones, which are the major contributor to this debt, needs to be again renegotiated as soon as possible to minimize the surcharges that are normally being paid or the levies or subsidies that are coming from the government side. So that's one big chunk that needs to be adjusted immediately. The other one is, we have this big, financing cycle and circular debt of the energy distribution networks, like for example DISCOs, the actual expenditure or the billed amount and the recoveries. So efficiency of the DISCOs, that needs to be improved immediately because the revenue collection is very, very important, as well as the expenditure. The third one, which is also important to meet up these financing cycles, is your tax net, and especially like my colleague sitting next to me, in between the manufacturer and the consumer, the distribution network and the services sectors and all those intermediate bodies that are enjoying all the services from the taxpayer money, which is either by the formal sector forced taxes, or manufacturing sectors forced taxes, or at source deduction, or someone at the end, consumer, in either sales tax in terms of the things that they use or consume. In between that is a huge 90% of volume.
And what comprehensive reforms are needed for that?
Yes. Number one is your fiscal policy, which was revised and now is being implemented through various line departments. Another one is your triangulation of the data, which actually, for example, the one shop is paying ABC amount of bill and the owner is also traveling, but his tax declaration is 2 rupees or 2,000, it's not correlational. So the legal reforms at the back of it are almost done. So they will be, the cycle, or you can say the circle, will be narrowed gradually. Then and we also encourage, the voluntary declaration of the taxes rather than forced declaration or through some criminal measures or some administrative measures. Rather, it's better to declare your own taxes for your own country. So that's also 3 main crucial steps. Another one is you're bringing the agriculture sector. as of now, and you have witnessed that many decades, this sector was exempted from major taxations. And they're also utilizing all those services that is government offering through that taxpayer money. So that reform is complete now, and with this next financial year, they will be included in these taxation networks. So primarily 4 reforms, while also building the right human capital for industry-led growth, export-led growth, which is also Udan Pakistan, one of the E. The first E is export, 5E framework of Government of Pakistan.
Yes.
So that is the main driver of economy in addition to other 4 E's. So it's not one sector, Maryam, which can actually drive this big change. It's a cumulative, augmented effects that will bring this country out of this financing issues and the circular debt.
Right, but Dr. Jasim, we cannot forget about inflation. With macroeconomic indicators showing 4.1% of inflation and a current account surplus of over $600 million and remittances exceeding $3 billion per month. How sustainable is this stability in the light of IMF's rigorous reform requirements?
Right. So you see, the reforms are actually in favor of reducing the debt and in favor of stabilizing the country. So if you're looking at those indicators of the macroeconomic indicators, which you call inflation and these FDIs and all these things, you need to see, is there continuity of the policy? Yes, it's a continuity of the policy. You see a better financial outlook in coming year, next budget? Yes, it's a better coming, it will be a much better one with a more consumer friendly, more people friendly. So the major people who are actually now dragged through this inflation or having some poverty issues, they'll be addressed at major. So we don't see that this is reducing, it will be increasing with whatsoever is the situation. Now, most important factor for external contributor is your security actually, which you see we have witnessed a slight surge in last few weeks. That is main contributor. That's main contributor. We need to make sure that we sustain those policies, but we also sustain a peaceful security environment for all the business sector and all the international investors, so they trust the government, the political bodies, and this state as a heaven, an investor heaven.
Of course, we have to create that conducive environment for the investors to come in and to feel secure for their investor. And of course, we know, Eshal, that geopolitical environment also plays a part when it comes to investments. But let's talk about structural reforms regarding state-owned enterprises. Because we know that IMF review emphasizes about privatization of that. What reforms and how will these reforms, in your opinion, will contribute to reducing our fiscal burden?
So when we talk about state-owned enterprises, there's, let's go back to the definition of what state-owned enterprises are. So whenever there's a business that is public, it means that their main focus is bringing good to the nation, that is welfare. When it's privatized, their main motive is to earn profit. So the difference, what it causes is that the private sector works more on efficiency. And when they work more in efficiency, it becomes more sustainable. And that's the reason why I think IMF is forcing Pakistan to privatize the state-owned enterprises in order for them to generate more sustainable ways of revenue. And once, for example, PIA or DISCO, that could actually translate into better revenue generation for the government and more sustainable implementation of fiscal policies in the coming years.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And now we are joined online by Mr. Faad. Waheed, welcome to the program. Mr. Faad, we are talking about, of course, the sticking points regarding a staff level agreement. And when it comes to it, with discussions on Memorandum for Economic and Financial Policies continuing virtually, and government is very optimistic about it, what are the most critical elements that must be finalized in this document to secure the next IMF tranche?
I think it's the most important thing at this part because that's what we have left with the IMF on the back end. Whereas the pressing statement was, strong implementation from the Pakistani government. So I think it's a win situation for Pakistani government. And I think we all need to commend our authorities for actually making the right steps. But when it comes to MEFP, definitely the financial policies that have been in place and that are it's a good lookout. But at the same time, I think there's much more to be done. This visit should have been very positive, and it should have been actually decided in this meeting. But nevertheless, I don't think it's going to be another 3 months like the previous IMF agreement took 3 months to finalize. I hope this is going to finalize in the next 2-3 months, the next 2-3 weeks. Given that, we have to understand the statement that was issued by Nathan was also telling us about this has to be finalized virtually as well. So that's a very positive sign. And I would highly.
Of course. Of course, the discussions are continuing online, Mr. Faad, and like you alluded to that, IMF delegation also praised Pakistan's strong implementation of our reforms. But there were some technical slippages as well in some sectors. What needs to be done to address those issues and to prioritize those areas?
See, the initial thing that was a slippage was the target missing of FBR and the failure of Tajir Do scheme. So those were the two main points. But nevertheless, sector-wise, yes, there's lots of potential, and the Pakistani government, through its provisional governments, is also working on the same. If we talk about agriculture, we've taken a better step towards prospering Pakistan and venturing into not just the food safety basket, but also towards the exports of these agricultural products. So I think that's another plus point. The other way where I look at it around is, the energy. So energy has been a big part of this entire regime of 10 years. So yes, the new coming in of solar, the net metering issue that just came up, that's also being resolved. So I think this government is taking their full hands on all this project, and I hope to see this conclude in a very amicable way.
Right. And Dr. Jasim, like we earlier discussed, that external factors also play a part when it comes to IMF. And with a second Trump presidency in the White House, how do you think this is going to be impacting economic recovery of countries like Pakistan, and especially in this uncertain geopolitical environment?
Well, I see a positive hope when Trump 2.0, I mean, the new administration, they, took the Oval Office, and then a couple of executive orders, 74 in fact, were signed, and some of them were on, like it's a tariff game actually, which is happening between China, Canada, Mexico primarily, and with European states, and also leveraging some of the African countries. So if you look at the overall broader, shaping up of the Trump 2.0 agenda in last 2 to 3 weeks or these last 2 months, I see that it's more of a, business-friendly, peace-oriented agenda, which is also expanding its outreach to not only the neighboring countries, rather than also to the Middle East and Asia and across, even in Europe. So, given this overall broader perspective, I see that Pakistan can leverage very well on this tariff war by presenting its soil and its services for manufacturing industry and services industry, like India did in Calcutta a few decades ago, and they were booming now.
Right,
So
but Dr. Jasim, at the same time, there were rumors or news rather that US might be backing off from these international institutions like IMF or World Bank. Do you think that is going to be happening in future? And how this is going to be impacting countries like Pakistan?
Well, okay. So the first, you see how much is the overall contribution of the America in these entities. So in terms of WHO, which backed up already, it was about 20%, and it did impact number of initiatives in African countries. To some extent in Pakistan also, especially the malaria and other infection diseases that, the coming USAID component that was, supporting, and also energy sector reforms. But on a broader scale, American or Trump uncertainty will remain, and sometimes I also call him like Mr. U-turn. You can sign an executive order, you can simply say, I can again re-sign another executive order to reverse that order. So, but I'm pretty sure that the way it is managing, and the advisors to the Trump administration cannot take that big critical step of, stepping off from IFC or such big financial institutions which are contributing. But in case, very, very narrow window, it will not affect Pakistan, because Pakistan is not a big, user of those funds. We actually, if you look at the broader economy, we're very peanut. It's a very peanut amount that we are getting it. So it will not affect. That's number one, if it happened at all. Number two, regardless of the amount, whether 7 billion or 70 billion, our reliance should be our own industry. We need to come out of these financial cycles starting from 1950.
And this is the 25th
And this
program.
is the 25th program. So how long we will continue to rely on these financial packages? So the government is very serious on taking long-term measures as well to reduce our reliance on external financing, such loans or any other things, and develop in-house capacity, our own human capital, our own industrial sector to meet our country needs. And we have so much rich resources we have, right from the mineral to the natural resources, from the blue economy to the green economy, so many things we have. So we need to build upon it, and not to worry about whatever Trump is doing. Pakistan will sustain, and it will sustain better, inshallah.
Right, that is a very optimistic picture. But Mr. Faad, coordination among the provinces remains a key issue when we talk about IMF or any other fiscal policies or programs. In your opinion, how can harmonizing fiscal targets across all the provinces help ensure coordinated economic planning and increase the overall success of the IMF program?
I think this will take a lot of political will and a lot of, a nationalist approach of all the provinces at this point. If it comes from the top, the Prime Minister, definitely it's going to help it, but they have to create a harmony to create and bring all the taxes in, a harmony to create and bring all the enforcers in. So whatever the inputs are, we have to understand that whenever Pakistan needs it, so all the provinces have to come together. I do advocate this, and I do always talk about how bringing together all the provinces can help Pakistan become a better nation and prosper. So we do need to understand all these political parties need to sit together. I have been doing this before, and from the same forum of your program today, I request also all the parties to, let's converge and let's stay on the part of recovery. Let's sign a charter of economy as well, and not just interfere in politics, but let's put the economy on the side and let's focus on the economy so we can make a better future for our generations to come. Mind you, Pakistan is geographically located in a very better position than other countries, and recently we've seen inauguration of the Gwadar airport, which has also brought in a better feather. So I think this will bring a lot of harmony if we talk about Balochistan and we talk about the federal, and we add the Punjab element to it, and then the GB element to it. So once we categorize all these, and specifically we do work on these provinces to bring out what the best they can offer to Pakistan, to export especially. That would be the best part. And lastly, I would also suggest that Pakistan needs their private businessmen. So from the chambers, I do extend my arm from the Pakistani business.
Right, right. Unfortunately, we have lost contact with Mr. Faad. But coming to you, of course, he was mentioning about the role of private sector. How significant is the role of private sector when it comes to implementation of fiscal policies and contributing to these policies? And what kind of incentives should the government be providing to the investors, especially private businesses?
Yes, so Pakistan has already been working on specialized economic zones. But the issue being that there is a lot of bureaucratic, there is a very slow bureaucratic process that allows approvals, and there is a huge, and then there is a huge energy and infrastructure gap that they face, and that becomes a very uncertain environment for the investors to invest in. So, and again, security and political instability. Pakistan fails to sort of have a government for a tenure of 5 years. So whenever there's a new government, there's a change in policy. And when that happens, it just makes the investor believe that this is something that would persist, and they stop investing. So having a stable environment and having good energy and infrastructure for the investors to invest in, I think those are some reasons, those are some things that the government could work on to boost private sector enterprises.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Jasim, you also alluded to this point earlier about creating that conducive environment for the private sector. How would that conducive environment look like? And my second question is about the climate financing, of course, because IMF's focus is on climate funding as well. How do you think this is going to be aligning with long-term policies of Pakistan's own economic resilience or building an economy that is economically stable?
Well, okay. Number one, you mentioned about, you asked about, the conducive environment for the private sector and how it looks like. Number one, ease of business. One window operation, like registration processes online, and like PSW window created by customs, and FBR is also integrated within that. Similarly, now the steps of SECP incorporation has also included in that, and the processes are very simplified, but yet it is not only limited to these 2-3 main entities. The business sector normally has to be regulated through various government ministries. For example, someone who wants to manufacture something, the health ministry comes, and the DRAP comes, and similarly in interior comes for certain things.
Because investors still have some sort of anxiety when it comes to investments. So what specific policy signals should the government be giving? Yes.
I mean, number one, yes, the anxiety is valid, because still the process of complete transitioning to a one window operation for ease of operations, ease of business. Businessmen need to import something, he needs to export something, he will be manufacturing something, he will be needing a cheap energy, he will be needing the security, he will be needing the continuity of the economic policies in this country. So these all compounding factors, when are they in place, only then you gain the trust of the investors or the businessmen. So the policies are inclusive, yes. They are being implemented through 5E framework and Udan Pakistan, and the highest forum is monitoring and implementing those policies, including SIFC, and with the major projects supported by P3A and also the Board of Investments in various provinces. So the policies are there, they are being implemented, the hitches are there, and the hitches needs to be solved, and I agree that, still the further integration into one window operation. For example, health needs to be integrated with the PSW, with the FBR, and with the customs, to have a one window operation for any consumer who wants to bring any machine or any product from outside. Similarly, for other energy sector, engineering council is involved, the patents are being produced, the research environment is being created. There are number of authorities which even when you list them, they are like, in the federal and in the province, more than 15 entities you have to go through. So all these things need to be very simplified if we want really a private-led economy and export-led economy in this country.
Right, and Mr. Faad, what's your take on the role of digital technologies in reforming Pakistan's fiscal management, particularly in streamlining budget preparation and execution to meet IMF conditions?
Long path and a long discussion that's been going over the years. There's funds that's come in with the FPR, but it's not really happening. I think it's one of the most effective tools that we need at this time to ensure revenue collection, to ensure business ease of doing business, as Jasim just mentioned. Yes, digitization is going to help, technology is going to help, but really the will is there of the implementation. So I think an implementation-led program should be run in the same area. Just like my fellow here also mentioned about the bureaucratic hurdles. Yes, there are there, but leaving that behind, and I'm not going to talk about the negativity, but let's talk about the positivity. Whenever FPR has taken any kind of step in the digital technology of taking out revenues, it has succeeded. But this past 2-year program has been not up to the mark, I would say. But digitization would definitely help. In that context, digital payments is something new that's just been entered Pakistan. So we just heard Google Pay has arrived in Pakistan. So that's another feather in the cap of this government, bringing in foreign direct investment and also bringing in a little ease of doing business. So I think it's commendable at this point. So yes, it's very important. And for the private businessman, it's the most important thing that we can do. If we can transfer money in real seconds, if we can transfer open LCs in real seconds, that's the best thing we can do.
Right, and lastly, coming to you, Eshal, of course, we know that these IMF reforms or policy suggestions are going to be shaping Pakistan's policies not for the short term but for years to come. So how can government ensure that the momentum of reforms is sustained beyond this current program?
So as he mentioned that government is implementing measures that are looking at the long-term effect now. So just being the case, Pakistan usually focuses on having short-term things, but like fiscal consolidation is happening, which is not increasing tax or making progressive taxation, but rather increasing their tax base, which is a sustainable thing because they are getting to know more businesses that are happening and that tax is going to sustain for longer. Again, the other fiscal consolidation measure that is happening is that they are sort of limiting their expenditure on unproductive things, which is again something that is more sustainable. So the government now with the RAN project as well, they are focusing on long-term initiatives that are going to help implement the measures that are taken right now into a broader horizon of things.
Right, right. Thank you very much, Ms. Eshal Arooj, for joining us in today's discussion. Thank you very much, Dr. Jasim Anwar, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Faad Waheed, for joining us in today's program. That's all from Game Changer today. Thank you for joining.